You're continuing the Get It Done certified playlist for the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate, SAA-C03. Episode 13 covers questions 121 through 130. Work through each question before the answer is revealed. Question 121. A company has a service that produces event data. The company wants to use AWS to process the event data as it is received. The data is written in a specific order that must be maintained throughout processing. The company wants to implement a solution that minimizes operational overhead. Option A. Create an Amazon Simple Queue service, Amazon SQS, FIFO queue to hold messages. Set up an AWS Lambda function to process messages from the queue. Option B. Create an Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, topic to deliver notifications containing payloads to process. Configure an AWS Lambda function as a subscriber. Option C. Create an Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS, standard queue to hold messages. Set up an AWS Lambda function to process messages from the queue independently. Option D. Create an Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, topic to deliver notifications containing payloads to process. Configure an Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS, queue as a subscriber. The correct answer is A. Create an Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS, FIFO queue to hold messages. Set up an AWS Lambda function to process messages from the queue. Explanation. FIFO queues preserve message order, and Lambda provides scalable, serverless processing. Why not option B? SNS plus Lambda no ordering guarantees. Why not option C? Standard SQS doesn't maintain order. Why not option D? SNS to SQS standard queues used, ordering not guaranteed. Question 122. A company recently migrated to AWS and wants to implement a solution to protect the traffic that flows in and out of the production VPC. The company had an inspection server in its on-premises data center. The inspection server performed specific operations such as traffic flow inspection and traffic filtering. The company wants to have the same functionalities in the AWS cloud. Option A. Use Amazon Guard Duty for traffic inspection and traffic filtering in the production VPC. Option B. Use traffic mirroring to mirror traffic from the production VPC for traffic inspection and filtering. Option C. Use AWS Network Firewall to create the required rules for traffic inspection and traffic filtering for the production VPC. Option D. Use AWS Firewall Manager to create the required rules for traffic inspection and traffic filtering for the production VPC. The correct answer is C. Use AWS Network Firewall to create the required rules for traffic inspection and traffic filtering for the production VPC. Explanation. AWS Network Firewall provides stateful inspection and filtering for VPC traffic. Why not option A? Guard Duty detects threats but doesn't inspect or filter traffic in real time. Why not option B? Traffic mirroring sends a copy of traffic elsewhere but doesn't enforce rules. Why not option D? Firewall Manager manages rules across accounts but doesn't perform filtering itself. Question 123. A company is migrating an application from on-premises servers to Amazon EC2 instances. As part of the migration design requirements, a solutions architect must implement infrastructure metric alarms. The company does not need to take action if CPU utilization increases to more than 50% for a short burst of time. However, if the CPU utilization increases to more than 50% and read IOPS on the disk are high at the same time, the company needs to act as soon as possible. The solutions architect also must reduce false alarms. What should the solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Option A. Create Amazon CloudWatch composite alarms where possible. Option B. Create Amazon CloudWatch dashboards to visualize the metrics and react to issues quickly. Option C. Create Amazon CloudWatch synthetics canaries to monitor the application and raise an alarm. Option D. Create single Amazon CloudWatch metric alarms with multiple metric thresholds where possible. The correct answer is A. Create Amazon CloudWatch composite alarms where possible. Explanation. Composite alarms combine multiple metrics and reduce false positives by evaluating conditions together. Why not option B? Dashboards only for visualization, not for automated alerting. Why not option C? Synthetics canaries simulate user behavior but don't correlate metrics. Why not option D? Single metric alarms can't combine CPU and IOPS in one alarm. Question 124. A company wants to migrate its on-premises data center to AWS. According to the company's compliance requirements, the company can use only the App Northeast 3 region. Company administrators are not permitted to connect VPCs to the Internet. Which solutions will meet these requirements? Choose 2. Option A. Use AWS Control Tower to implement data residency guardrails to deny Internet access and deny access to all AWS regions, except App Northeast 3. Option B. Use rules in AWS WAF to prevent Internet access. Deny access to all AWS regions, except App Northeast 3 in the AWS account settings. Option C. Use AWS organizations to configure service control policies, SCP, that prevent VPCs from gaining Internet access. Deny access to all AWS regions except App Northeast 3. Option D. Create an outbound rule for the network ACL in each VPC to deny all traffic from 0/0/0. Create an IAM policy for each user to prevent the use of any AWS region other than App Northeast 3. Option E. Use AWS config to activate managed rules to detect and alert for Internet gateways, and to detect and alert for new resources deployed outside of App Northeast 3. The correct answers are A and C. Option A. Use AWS Control Tower to implement data residency guardrails to deny Internet access and deny access to all AWS regions, except App Northeast 3. Option C. Use AWS organizations to configure service control policies, SCP, that prevent VPCs from gaining Internet access. Deny access to all AWS regions, except App Northeast 3. Explanation. Control Tower with guardrails and SCPs from organizations provides centralized and enforceable controls to restrict regions and Internet access. Why not option B? WAF rules. WAF is for application layer traffic, not for restricting regions or VPC Internet access. Why not option D? Network ACL plus IAM policy not scalable or centrally managed. Why not option E? AWS config detects violations but doesn't enforce policies. Question 125. A company uses a 3-tier web application to provide training to new employees. The application is accessed for only 12 hours every day. The company is using an Amazon RDS for my SQL DB instance to store information and wants to minimize costs. What should a solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Option A. Configure an IAM policy for AWS Systems Manager Session Manager. Create an IAM role for the policy. Update the trust relationship of the role. Set up automatic start and stop for the DB instance. Option B. Create an Amazon Elasticache for Redis cache cluster that gives users the ability to access the data from the cache when the DB instance is stopped. Invalidate the cache after the DB instance is started. Option C. Launch an Amazon EC2 instance. Create an IAM role that grants access to Amazon RDS. Attach the role to the EC2 instance. Configure a cron job to start and stop the EC2 instance on the desired schedule. Option D. Create AWS Lambda functions to start and stop the DB instance. Create Amazon Event Bridge, Amazon Cloud Watch events, scheduled rules to invoke the Lambda functions. Configure the Lambda functions as event targets for the rules. The correct answer is D. Create AWS Lambda functions to start and stop the DB instance. Create Amazon Event Bridge, Amazon Cloud Watch events, scheduled rules to invoke the Lambda functions. Explanation. This provides a fully automated and serverless method to schedule DB instance uptime and reduce cost. Why not option A? IAM Session Manager not relevant for DB scheduling. Why not option B? Elasticache doesn't persist relational data and isn't a replacement for RDS. Why not option C? EC2 cron job adds unnecessary compute cost and complexity. Question 126. A company sells ringtones created from clips of popular songs. The files containing the ringtones are stored in Amazon S3 standard and are at least 128 KB in size. The company has millions of files, but downloads are infrequent for ringtones older than 90 days. The company needs to save money on storage while keeping the most accessed files readily available for its users. What action should the company take to meet these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A. Configure S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA storage for the initial storage tier of the objects. Option B. Move the files to S3 Intelligent Tiering and configure it to move objects to a less expensive storage tier after 90 days. Option C. Configure S3 Inventory to manage objects and move them to S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA, after 90 days. Option D. Implement an S3 lifecycle policy that moves the objects from S3 Standard to S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA, after 90 days. The correct answer is D. Implement an S3 lifecycle policy that moves the objects from S3 Standard to S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA, after 90 days. Explanation. Lifecycle policies automate transitions to cost-efficient storage classes based on access patterns. Why not option A? Store initially in Standard IA costly for frequent early access. Why not option B? Intelligent tiering adds per-object monitoring costs, less optimal than lifecycle in this case. Why not option C? Inventory plus manual move adds manual effort and operational overhead. Question 127. A company needs to save the results from a medical trial to an Amazon S3 repository. The repository must allow a few scientists to add new files and must restrict all other users to read-only access. No users can have the ability to modify or delete any files in the repository. The company must keep every file in the repository for a minimum of 1 year after its creation date. Which solution will meet these requirements? Option A. Use S3 object lock in governance mode with a legal hold of 1 year. Option B. Use S3 object lock in compliance mode with a retention period of 365 days. Option C. Use an IAM role to restrict all users from deleting or changing objects in the S3 bucket. Use an S3 bucket policy to only allow the IAM role. Option D. Configure the S3 bucket to invoke an AWS Lambda function every time an object is added. Configure the function to track the hash of the saved object so that modified objects can be marked accordingly. The correct answer is B. Use S3 object lock in compliance mode with a retention period of 365 days. Explanation. Compliance mode ensures that no user can overwrite or delete objects for the retention duration. Why not option A? Governance mode allows privileged users to override, which violates retention rules. Why not option C? IAM plus policy doesn't guarantee enforcement of retention. Why not option D? Lambda plus hash tracking too complex and doesn't enforce immutability. Question 128. A company is planning to run a group of Amazon EC2 instances that will occasionally scale in and out. The instances run a memory-intensive workload and must be placed on the same high-performance network for optimal performance. Which solution will meet these requirements? Option A. Launch the EC2 instances in a spread placement group in a single availability zone. Option B. Launch the EC2 instances in a partition placement group in a single availability zone. Option C. Launch the EC2 instances in an EC2 auto-scaling group. Enable EC2 high memory. Option D. Launch the EC2 instances in a cluster placement group in a single availability zone. The correct answer is D. Launch the EC2 instances in a cluster placement group in a single availability zone. Explanation. Cluster placement groups provide low latency and high throughput networking ideal for memory-intensive workloads. Why not option A? Spread placement group focuses on fault tolerance, not network performance. Why not option B? Partition placement group designed for large distributed workloads needing isolation. Why not option C? EC2 auto-scaling plus high memory doesn't ensure network proximity. Question 129. A company hosts an internal application on Amazon EC2 instances. The company wants to ensure that only authorized users can access the application. The users must authenticate with the corporate Active Directory over a VPN connection to AWS. Which solution meets these requirements? Option A. Launch EC2 instances in a public subnet. Use IAM roles and policies for authorization. Option B. Integrate the application with Amazon Cognito for user authentication. Option C. Use AWS Directory Service for Microsoft Active Directory. Enable seamless domain join for EC2. Option D. Set up SAML federation between the application and the corporate Active Directory. The correct answer is C. Use AWS Directory Service for Microsoft Active Directory. Enable seamless domain join for EC2. Explanation. AWS Managed Microsoft AD allows seamless integration with corporate Active Directory over VPN for user authentication. Why not option A? IAM roles/policies not intended for user-level application access via AD. Why not option B? Amazon Cognito best for web/mobile auth, not for on-prem AD integration. Why not option D? SAML federation works but requires custom federation setup and more complexity. Question 130. A company is building a document review application that will run on AWS. The application will store documents in Amazon S3. When a new document is uploaded, the application will extract metadata by using Amazon Textract and store the metadata in Amazon DynamoDB. Which combination of steps should a solutions architect take to meet these requirements? Choose 2. Option A. Create an S3 event notification that invokes a Lambda function when a new object is created. Option B. Configure Amazon S3 to invoke Amazon Textract when a new object is created. Option C. Configure a Lambda function to process the object from S3 and call Amazon Textract. Option D. Create an Amazon API gateway endpoint to call Amazon Textract when a new object is created. Option E. Configure an AWS batch job to call Amazon Textract when a new object is created. The correct answers are A and C. Option A. Create an S3 event notification that invokes a Lambda function when a new object is created. Option C. Configure a Lambda function to process the object from S3 and call Amazon Textract. Explanation. This architecture is event-driven and serverless. S3 triggers Lambda, which then calls Textract and updates DynamoDB. Why not option B? S3 cannot invoke Textract, directly requires intermediary like Lambda. Why not option D? API gateway unnecessary for this internal workflow. Why not option E? AWS batch overkill for real-time or low-latency metadata extraction. That wraps up this episode. Follow the channel for more certification practice videos and share this one with someone who could use the extra exam preparation. The next episode continues the question set.